So that first question you want to be asking anytime you're making a pass in soccer is how far away is your teammate? If your teammate's pretty close to you, we're talking 5 or 7 yards away, then a nice and easy pass is going to make a great passing option to your teammate. It's going to give them plenty of time to react. Oftentimes it's going to be very difficult for that soccer defender on the other team to come in and steal the ball. And also, things that are more important than the actual pace and the power of that ball is making sure that you know exactly to which foot or in front of the player, your teammate, that you're passing to. You want to be much more accurate and really ensure that your accuracy is perfect, because the power just isn't as important, because there's less of a chance of you making a mistake and the person on the other team being able to get the ball. So again, 5 to 7 yards away, a nice easy pass in is gonna do very good for you. Now, something to consider is if you're further away, we're talking 20 plus yards, then pace is so important, because if it's not fast enough, then someone else on the other team can cut in and steal that ball. So hard passes for distance, softer passes and much more accuracy, and you know exactly where you're placing that ball, is important for shorter passes. So that second thing you need to consider when passing is how much pressure is your teammate under. If they have no one on them, then a nice easy pass in is going to make it so that it's completely appropriate for them to receive that pass. They can do with the ball what they please. But now imagine your teammate is under a lot of pressure. We're talking they have one player on them or even 2 players on them, but of all the options you have, that is still the best option and you're going to play them a pass. Then you must be much more forceful with that passing speed, with that ball. You've got to really make sure to drive through with that pass in order to get a lot of power on that pass. You want to make sure it gets to their feet, and the defenders that are really close to them, pressuring them, don't have the time to be able to come in and steal that ball. Now, it's still important. You want to lead them if it's going to make it easier for them, and you want to play to the appropriate foot depending on the situation, but the pace, the speed on that pass has got to be there. So that number 3, how good your teammate is that's receiving your pass, is often the most forgot in question for someone to ask. So if you could, comment below, yes, if you're always thinking about that, you're always considering that, at least 95% of the time, whether they're really good with their foot skills and their receiving abilities, or if they're not so good, determines how fast you pass that ball. Otherwise, comment no if you believe that no matter who they are, that they should still be getting the same pass as any player on your team in a situation, or if you really don't think too much about how good their foot skills are, their receiving skills are. So comment no if you don't really consider that. All right, so something we want to avoid when passing this ball is hitting it too low so that when we go to pass it, that ball pops up in the air and it's much harder for our teammate to receive that pass. Anytime that I'm receiving a pass, I want it at my feet because it's much easier to receive it and to attack with that first touch versus getting the ball in the air, and more often than not, you're trying to settle it and focus on just trapping it out of the air versus taking that attacking touch. So avoid hitting that ball too low. Also, you want to avoid those low probability passes, those 35-yard across field passes where someone else on your team has someone else on the other team covering them. You don't want to put your team in high-risk situations for that ball to be turned over, because if it is, depending on where in the field you turn that ball over, it can quickly make for a counterattack for the other team. Alright, so how do we practice this? Well, there's a general rule in anything that you're going to do that it's going to take you 10,000 hours of deliberate practice in order for you to become a professional and an expert. So what that means is, and yes, there is ways that you can cut those 10,000 hours down so you don't have to spend quite so many hours and you can really get a lot better a lot quicker than a lot of other people, but the general rule is 10,000 hours. So you've got to practice. You've got to work on your passing skills. You got to constantly be looking to do that. A decent portion of your practice should be passing and receiving, because that is a lot of soccer. You should be passing and receiving the ball more often than you're actually using your foot skills, and more often than you're actually going to be shooting the ball. So make sure that you're constantly working on developing those skills in practice. Now, it's super important to remember that when we practice our passing and receiving, you're going to make some mistakes, but that's okay. We want to learn, we want to grow, we want to improve from them. But as you're making those passes, you want to be able to ask yourself, All right, how good of a pass was that? If it was a good pass, great. What did I do? Okay, awesome. That's what I should do every single time. But if you make a mistake, you make a pass that's not so good, don't be afraid to ask yourself what you did wrong. If you can understand the form, you can be the best person at helping yourself succeed by constantly telling yourself where you can improve. Give yourself a pat on the back when you succeed, but when you've got room for growth, room for improvement, don't be afraid to let yourself know, hey, I did this and this well, but when I made that pass, I crossed my feet, so it turned my hips. Or I did a really good job of passing that ball, except I leaned back so the ball popped up in the air, and now it's harder for my teammate to receive. So I gotta remember to keep my shoulders over the ball. So constantly asking yourself those 3 questions comes with time, and asking yourself, how was that pass and how can it be improved, will make you much better of a soccer player. If you wanna learn more about how to be the best passer on your team, then grab the 4th book in the Understand Soccer series, Soccer Passing and Receiving, today on Amazon.com using the link in the description below. This book is available in paperback, audiobook, and ebook. And if you use the link in the description below for the audiobook to sign up with Audible, you can listen to this book for free by creating an account. So now, that pro tip you've been waiting for. In order to be a better passer than your teammates, even quicker than they can develop, is to just change one thing when it comes to passing. And that's to know exactly what you're gonna do even before you receive the ball. So many soccer players, they're looking at the ball gets played in, now they receive it, now they scan, now they look, they try to figure out where that ball's gonna go next. Make sure anytime that someone else has the ball, you're looking at the ball, then you're looking at everyone else, looking at the ball, looking at others, looking at the ball, checking over your shoulder, looking at the ball, looking at others, so that you can start to already form a plan, so that you can be a lot better at taking those one-touch passes right off to a teammate, and it seems like you have eyes on all parts of your head because you're constantly playing wonderful passes and accurate passes to your teammates because you already know where they are, because you already looked before you received that pass. So let me know in the comments below if you have any feedback on how to make these videos better, or suggestions for any topics that you want me to cover in the future. And if you could, hit the like button below and the subscribe and bell notification icon to ensure you do not miss any videos on building your soccer confidence.